Hello and welcome to the Wednesday, May 29th, 2024 Jupyter community call, or sorry, this is the Jupyter frontends call. So I'm Eric Gentry and I'll be your host for the day. So to start off, this is a place for JupyterLab contributors to connect with each other and with the community about JupyterLab topics. So we want to welcome all newcomers. Please feel free to jump in on discussions, introduce yourself, or add your own items to the agenda. You can find a link to the agenda in the chat. So I'll also just mention a couple things off the bat. So first, this is going to be recorded and uploaded to YouTube, so just be aware of that. Second, we all follow the Jupyter Code of Conduct while we're here. So you can read about that at jupyter.org/conduct. And if you haven't been here before, you can add items to the agenda yourself. We'll go over each item during the meeting, and then we'll have some time at the end for additional discussion. So we have some agenda items today, and the first item is from Gabriel.
Hello. Yes, so the Jupyter accessibility call happens every 2 weeks. And at the last one, there were some folks who came in from UC Berkeley, and they said that there is a student there who worked on an extension to do an accessibility check on a Jupyter notebook. And they were asking if they could demo it. So I said, sure, why not? And so we're going to make tomorrow's call, give the demo all the time that it needs. And I'm just announcing that here in case anybody wants to show up tomorrow to that call. That's all.
All right, Mike, you're next.
You're muted.
You're muted, Mike.
That would be better, I guess. Okay, let me share my screen. Do one. Okay. So last year, with JupyterLab 4 or 4.1, we included this virtual scroll bar, which is active when the windowing mode is full. And it's not how it looks right now, but this is a proposal to make it look differently and show more information. So what you can see right now is that there is an outline. Is the screen size good enough? Or maybe I can increase it slightly. So the outline shows where the viewport is. So I can see the cell with execution count 15 and the cell 24. So that's good. And it travels along with you. Some cells are longer. So if I increase that to, say, 90, the viewport will completely align with that cell. Another departure from the previous or the current behavior is that this number currently is showing the execution count for cold cells, not the index, because this is what actually user can see. And what else can we do? Well, we can raise an exception, and it will show up. Let me change the screen. A cell with the red background. So that's like a test notebook. Let's see how it works in a more representative notebook. So there is a longer markdown cell, and you can see the text, or rather the outline of the text. And well, it seems that even with very long notebooks, so this one has 207 cells, we can render all the text without any penalty because it doesn't include syntax highlighting. It doesn't include rendering of math equations. It doesn't include any of Markdown rendering. So it seems like, to me, good enough first iteration to allow user to actually understand where they are with this virtual scroll bar / minimap, and to indicate where the attention might be needed in case of a like failed execution of a cell, like here. So that's still work in progress, and I know that there will be some consensus building before we commit to implementing something like that in core, or maybe that would be optional. But for now, I opened a pull request which brings just the necessary implementation. So first of all, we cannot re-render the entire scroll bar every time when something changes. We need to have a reactive implementation. So only the item which needs to be re-rendered will be re-rendered with the proposed pull request that I linked in the notes. And if there is any change to the cell layout, only the cells which were added or changed will be updated. Yeah, any thoughts, comments, questions?
That looks fantastic. Good work.
Really cool.
It does look awesome.
Do we have any other feedback?
Mike, I had a quick question. Looking at the code, haven't looked at everything yet. Is there a toggle to like enable, disable it? I know some people have a strong preference against like having maps on. So just a question.
The pull request doesn't include all of that. It only includes refactor of the sorry, trying to show my screen again. The refactor of the code, underlying code, but what it does include is this the viewport, and I think that this would be not a big of a change and rather non-controversial. So I will undraft this pull request soon. And the entire virtual scroll bar does have a toggle, but there is no toggle on what to display in it. Like, are we displaying only index? Are we displaying the execution count? Are we displaying the text content of the cells as well? So that's something I think we need to discuss. Like, do we want to have a toggle? Do we want to have different options on what to display, or do we decide on a single implementation that would be easier to maintain because we wouldn't need to have extension points, etc.
Oh, I was more asking about the toggle for the map, so it's there. Thank you. Thanks again. Cool.
So I have a question. That I wanted to contextualize it first. I don't want to make it. I don't want it to sound like a negative question. I'm really just actually curious. Because I remember when the first time I ever used VS Code, I thought, oh wow, this is really cool, this mini map thing. And then I kept it around, and then I think at some point, maybe like a year later or so, I realized I never used it. And so I turned it off. And which makes me wonder what, like, I'm just curious, like, how do people actually use the mini map? For those who do.
I mean, keep in mind, VS Code's mini map is an homage to Sublime Text Unregistered's mini map, which was the it IDE or a code editor 10 years ago. So I think that was like the effort to sort of have feature parity with it. And to be honest, like I never really used Sublime very much, and even now, like I was genuinely surprised to see that I still had the mini map enabled in VS Code. Um, I think it's mainly useful because like you can kind of get a better sense for where you are in a very long file. Because some files have like long stretches of constants which look very skinny, a lot of very short lines. And then you might have longer functions or something.
Yeah.
Um, it's you know, if this feature disappeared tomorrow, I would be heartbroken. But I know there are people who really got on board with Sublime and still insist on Sublime as like the, you know, like so Sublime is everywhere at this point. Like if you use Chrome and you use the debugger tool and you hit Command P to switch between files, that's Sublime.
See, that I find really useful.
Yeah, so
But
that's what I'm
you're
saying
right.
is
I
that
think
like this is feature parity with an IDE that even if you don't use, you use.
yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I I do the same thing. I mean, I use it for orienting in a large file. So, I mean, I find that the visualization of the text for me is pretty helpful in yeah, actually identifying where, because yeah, you do get working on these if you're in 1,000 or 2,000 line source file, um, these really distinctive blocks for me definitely help me orient, especially, I think.
So I guess the question that I'm trying to find an answer to is what are the distinctive blocks in case of a notebook? And there is some precedent and some discussion. I've linked that in the chat. But like some people might say that a figure like this should be included, and others will say that outputs take too much space. I think there is an agreement that a cell with an exception in the output is important. And I think that we can show some of the code. Maybe that's not the latest version of my code, but basically it can roughly give you the outline of the cell codes. And for Markdown, it just wraps the lines without reflecting the empty lines, new lines. But there is much more to it. And again, I linked the discussion and linked the pull request, which is a first step towards getting something like that. I would highly appreciate feedback on the issue and on the pull request.
Just out of curiosity, is it rendering, are you only rendering the visible minimap cells?
No,
Or are you're doing a full pass on the entire document?
all of them are rendered. The cost of rendering is very low because of the refactor that is included in the pull request. So it is all reactive, which means that on any interaction with the notebook, there will not be a full re-render of the entire minimap, only of the cells that have changed. So in a sense, the idea is that the notebook has very expensive things to render, and we only render the visible part plus some overscan at the bottom and at the top, roughly 1 or 2 cells. And minimap should be so cheap to render that we can render all of it. Maybe applying some heuristics to truncate, like if there is a cell with a source code which is 10,000 lines long, we never need to render as much. We can truncate it to first 500 or 1,000 characters.
All right, Jason, you're up next.
Okay. So I have been looking into this unusual issue in Jupyter Notebook. I just dropped a link in the chat. on the surface, it says that if you choose close and shut down notebook, it pops up a dialog. If you cancel the dialog, the tab or window closes anyway. That's how it manifests. But what seems to be happening under the covers is that Jupyter Notebook defines its own notebook extension, and none of the plugins in that extension seem to be getting activated, which would cause this and other commands to actually take effect. Um, and I was wondering, I've been looking at this off and on for a few days now, and was looking for to see if anybody has investigated this or found a way to like diagnose when plugins are just not getting activated.
Yeah, I saw the issue. Thanks for looking into this. It's a little bit weird that normally, I mean, this extension should definitely be activated in the main build on the notebook page.
Mm-hmm.
Or were you trying to act to look into no to use these plugins in other pages than the notebook page? Maybe that's why.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
So in a notebook, there are like the tree page, the notebook page, the terminal page. They are all different pages.
Mm-hmm.
And this extension is meant to be used only for the notebook page. But rereading the issue, I think it's the case here.
I mean, it is intended to be in the notebook view as opposed to like the tree view or anything
Yeah,
else. Because
that's what I mean by
it's
page. Mm.
yeah, so that's the kind of page that should be getting used on. But I can see that the various processes are referring to the lab extension, which is a little confusing because Notebook defines a lab extension, but Notebook also defines a notebook extension, and that's where this close and shut down notebook command should be getting activated. Um, and I'm not
Yeah.
sure, frankly, I'm not sure if you even should have a separate notebook extension if that might be better served in the lab extension, but I haven't tried that yet. That seems like it might be a little extreme.
So the lab extension is is just providing a the interface switcher button in the notebook toolbar, and it's a lab extension because then it also shows up in JupyterLab, and then we can switch between the two.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing it provides, if I remember correctly, or maybe there's another plugin as well, but I think this interface switcher is the main component of that lab extension. And then all of the other packages, they are really just used in Notebook. So it's not only Notebook extension, but like if you look at the terminal extension, there is also a small plugin to make sure the terminals are open in the new tabs, like in the classic Notebook. And this is not something we want in JupyterLab. So that's why they are only activated in Notebook 7. So the conclusion of this is that it should normally be activated normally as part of the main build of the Notebook 7, but not as an extension.
Okay.
So was your issue about getting this to even show up, or the plugins to be activated, or about the original post like suggesting that the menu shouldn't close the tab if we press cancel? Because I think that those are
Well, no,
two different
the
things.
problem is that so what you're seeing in Jupyter Notebook 7 is if you click close and shut down notebook, you see a dialog. I don't think that's
Yeah.
correct because in the classic notebook, I looked at this and in Notebook 6, if you click close and shut down notebook, the notebook closes. And I think that's what the notebook plugin code is intended to do, is to override the default behavior, which is to pop open that dialog and to just close it before the dialog even has a chance to open.
Yeah, or implement our own logic for this, because I think the pop-up we're seeing is the same as the one from lab. which is
Right.
why it shows up. Yeah,
But if you
I
look at
think
the code, I'm trying to see where exactly it's declared because I mentioned it here. Um, what this should be doing is there's a thing called close and cleaners um, that is executed when you choose that option. And what we're doing is in the code that I just linked in the chat, we're using this new close and halt command and adding it with a high precedence, rank 0, so that we will immediately close and halt the notebook before the dialog would appear. But this plugin here, close tab that I just linked, is not getting activated. Is that ID, that command is just not getting defined as a command.
okay. Are you seeing any errors in the DevTools then? I can check on the if you're
I
binder to
didn't
make
see
sure.
any errors in the dev tools. I just looked in the command prompt and in the browser dev tools, and I didn't see any errors about notebook extension. It just seems like nothing is even attempting to load the notebook extension under Jupyter Notebook, but the JupyterLab notebook extension is getting loaded.
Yes, but this plugin will be part of the main notebook bundle, or at least some of the chunks. So it won't show up as a regular JupyterLab extension.
Mm-hmm.
Are
Yeah,
you
I know.
able to?
I definitely did not see it show up as an extension.
Yeah, that's normal.
Yeah. But it's like even if I put in
Yeah.
a debug message in this code block, I um, I don't see that appear in the
Okay.
activate function.
I just tried with so 7.1.3, which is I think the yeah the version that is mentioned on this issue, and the menu item shows up, close and shut down notebook, Control Shift Q. So I suspect the plugin should be activated, otherwise it wouldn't be there.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at Mike suggested pulling up this. So if I share this window here,
Yeah, I think that's the gist I used to try it just now.
yeah. So if I open a file and I say close and shut down notebook, it closes immediately, which is the correct behavior. If I open a notebook and then select the kernel, run something, save it, and then I close and shut down the notebook, this is what I see and what I shouldn't be seeing is shut down the notebook question mark. The code that I linked in the chat should be short-circuiting this. And what I think is happening is that I'm going to click cancel, which is going to dismiss this dialog. But I think I think the close and halt command may be getting run anyway because it closes at that point.
Yeah, and in notebook code, we also have the window close, and we don't even check the result of the command. That's what I commented.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should do that at least. So if we want to keep so first question is, do we want to keep the dialog or not? And if we want to keep it, so it's the same as in JupyterLab, then we should check if it's canceled or not.
Yeah.
So we don't close the tab.
My gut reaction after looking at the code is that um, we tend to favor feature parity with Notebook 6 in cases like this, which is less interaction. Because closing a notebook is fairly safe. Like the browser will already alert you if you haven't saved it. That's a completely separate dialogue. Um, so
That's
I would
uh,
prefer favoring Notebook 6 parity than lab parity.
It
but
does.
this is not the case here, because if we shut down the server first and then close the window, you will get an alert that you are trying to leave the notebook, which is not saved, but the server is not running already and you cannot save the notebook.
No, but close and shut down notebook doesn't shut down the server backend. It only stops like the kernel for the notebook. Like it took some time for me to even understand what this was meant to be doing, because it's not the same as file shutdown, which shuts down the entire server instance. But close and shut down notebook, it's a weird phrase for sure. Like shutting down a notebook is independent of shutting down the server, but it is what we've been using, and so I think it's what users are expecting.
And I don't remember, in the classic notebook, does it also shut down the kernel, or does it only close the tab?
I believe it closes the kernel, because
Okay.
if you open the notebook again, the kernel has to start up again.
All right. Do we have any other feedback here?
I can have a look at the PR if you want, Jason,
Okay.
to help on
Yeah,
this.
I appreciate your feedback so far. I know you left some feedback like early on Tuesday. This is
Yeah.
something that I'm less concerned about, like the user impact of the close um the close command getting run, and more it seems like this notebook extension code just isn't getting activated. And so this could affect other parts of the notebook as well. But let's keep the conversation going in that pull request. We don't have to keep everyone else on this call involved with that.
Yeah, I also saw that you also opened another issue about various things. Maybe it could be nice to have a look at them as well at some point.
Oh yeah, there were a few other things that I was looking into, and I opened a few new issues in Notebook. I'll drop a link to the issues list in case you want to take a look at what's coming recently. Okay. Yeah, I also see Mike. We can talk about it off the record as well, but I don't want to take up too much time here because Jeremy is also on the agenda.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but it's gonna be quick. I think we discussed this after record at the very beginning. It's the YouTube channel was so there are various things on the YouTube channel. For now, it was called Jupyter uh, IPython until now. So I sent an email to the Jupyter Media Strategy Group to discuss the renaming this to Project Jupyter, and there is also an issue somewhere on the Jupyter website repo. And in the end, it was renamed. So now there is a new URL, which is more consistent with all of the other accounts we have on the various social media websites. The title was also renamed, and yeah. So if you had this bookmarked or I don't know mentioned somewhere, you can update the link. And yeah, wanted to say thanks to Anna in case she sees this for helping with this, and that's all for me.
Any more feedback about that?
I think it's cool that we're consistently using Project Jupyter on these things.
Yeah, it was about time.
Yeah. It was surprising though to see that like some of the older IPython links didn't automatically redirect. I
Yeah,
guess YouTube just doesn't set up redirects. It's also a little worrying that like would somebody else be able to take the IPython name? Because that was a concern with um, the Mastodon names, or some other social media.
yeah, it's possible. And there is actually it's pretty confusing on YouTube because they made several changes over the past years. They also have a feature called the custom URL. And I think this is not even this. That's a URL with a /c, I think, in it. And I think we have one still with IPython in it that points to this channel. But we can't update that custom URL apparently. We can only delete it and maybe create a new one, but it's not sure. I think they also have a condition on the amount of followers you have on a channel to be able to create custom URLs. So I think this one is not touched yet. And there is also like a full ID for the channel, which I think just points to the YouTube channel directly without the nice looking names in the URL. So yeah, a bit confusing, but that's where we are right now.
Yeah, there's a channel ID that's just like alphanumeric, I assume, for like internal auditing.
So I was going to ask whether the videos in documentation still work, but I already checked that, and it seems that everything is working because those were uploaded to that channel. We should ideally move off YouTube for adding quick videos in documentation, but for now it seems that the transition was not, at least not impacting the existing documentation.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the videos they have a unique ID, and I think the ID doesn't change if you just rename the handle of a channel. So they are stable.
In a slightly related topic, I just renamed the links in the Jupyter wiki. So there is a gallery of interesting notebooks, which is hard to find from Google, but it lists like hundreds of notebooks. And the links were going to nbviewer.ipython.org. And because that domain was no longer working, and it was using HTTP rather than HTTPS, I bulk renamed everything in that wiki file, and it seems to be working. Like most of the links are working. There are still many stale and dead links, but yeah, if you see anything pointing to nbviewer.ipython.org, you can just remove the IPython part, and it should work. And if you see that in documentation, add an S at the beginning as well, so that we have HTTPS.
All right, that's it for the agenda. Thank you to everyone for presenting and for attending. So we're happy to have you as part of the Jupyter community. We're having another meeting in 1 week. So these happen weekly. If you're interested in sharing in a future meeting, please do. So I'll now stop the recording and we'll have an off the record discussion. Brace yourselves.